They're here.
So yeah, at first, I just didn't know what to do.
At first, Daddy was confused.
I didn't know it was going to affect people in Nassau and Freeport.
And then I told him it was just the first 3 numbers.
Our new phone numbers have arrived, but there is no need to be afraid. Only the first 3 numbers have changed. The new numbers are in effect now.
The man shot in a double murder last week today charged with 2 counts of murder. What will be taxed and what will be exempt? We take a closer look at the draft value-added tax bill. A show of hands tells us how many high school students have fired a gun. And the Deputy Prime Minister steps in to defend the chairman of a government corporation. We have those stories and much more coming up tonight. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Christina McNeil, and your MB12 starts right now. Joining us. The 32-year-old man shot during last week's double murder on Woods Alley has been charged with the murders of his alleged girlfriend and her teen daughter. The victim's family waited for hours outside court and shouted obscenities as the defendant limped inside the magistrate's court complex this afternoon. Vonique Toot has the details.
32-year-old Jason Tino Ferguson was met with angry jeers as he arrived here at the Magistrates Court complex this afternoon. The Woods Alley resident was charged with last week's double murder of Vera Berry and her teenage daughter, Indiana Forbes.
Bring hanging back out, man. Stop this crime. Start hanging them, sending them in prison and letting them go eat up the government food, eat up my hard labor and thing.
Donning memorial pins of the 34-year-old mother and her 14-year-old daughter, emotional family members shouted obscenities at Ferguson, who was escorted by 7 police officers from a black SUV to Court 9. Ferguson, who is recovering from a gunshot wound to the leg, hobbled up the court stairs, with his hands cuffed to his crutches. He was charged with 2 counts of murder and was not required to enter a plea. Chief Magistrate Joy Ann Ferguson Pratt informed him that the question of bail does not arise. According to police reports, on the morning of Wednesday, November 6, Berry and her daughter Indiana were killed and Ferguson was injured when 2 gunmen broke into their Woods Alley apartment and opened fire. Ferguson was treated for his injuries and discharged from hospital. Days later, authorities revealed that they had taken him into custody and were questioning him. Attorneys Roger Gomez Jr. and Shaka Serville are representing the defendant. Serville informed the chief magistrate that his client is on medication as he recovers from a gunshot wound. Ferguson Pratt said she would bring this to the prison superintendent's attention. Ferguson was remanded to Her Majesty's Prison. He will return to court in February 2014. Reporting for NB12, I'm Vonique Toot.
Well, police have released the identities of all 4 victims of the fatal plane crash on Grand Bahama Sunday. According to authorities, the victims have been identified as Anthony Weishart, Cindy Muse of Indiana, and husband and wife Glenn and Leslie Steiner of Arizona. Reports are the 4 were on a sightseeing flight when the single-engine aircraft experienced engine trouble shortly after takeoff. Police say the plane plunged into shallow waters near Queens Cove, about 4 miles west of Grand Bahama International Airport. Officials from the Federal Aviation Administration are expected to travel to Grand Bahama to assist local authorities with the investigation. In other news, we now have more details about how the government believes it can generate up to $200 million annually through the implementation of value-added tax next year. The Nassau Guardian exclusively revealed which items and services are listed taxable and those that will remain tax-free in its outline of the 168-page draft document. In this report, Paige McCartney gives us a rundown of some of the more important aspects of the draft bill and regulations, which are expected to be tabled before the end of the month.
The more than 80 professions subject to VAT are a cross-section of the business and services communities and include those from pharmacists and physicians to electricians, mechanics, and to librarians. It's been stated before VAT will be implemented with a flat tax rate of 15% on the services provided by these professionals, except for hotel rooms and their food and beverage offerings, which will be taxed at a discounted 10% rate. However, condominiums attached to hotels and many financial and insurance transactions will be taxed. Consumers will also have to pay extra for cable bills and phone bills, but only businesses will pay VAT for electricity and water bills, and only if their consumption surpasses a still undecided threshold. But there are many things that will remain VAT-free according to the draft. They include health and life insurance coverage, along with games of chance, gambling and lotteries, services by charitable, religious, and educational institutions, including daycare and after-school, retirement, and disabled facilities, and the sale or rental of a dwelling not part of a hotel. Also, stores won't be allowed to charge an added tax for a variety of breadbasket items like beef, chicken, pork, fresh milk and milk products, fresh and frozen vegetables, rice, bread, cane sugar, laundry detergent, and various cooking oils.
Also outlined in the draft legislation obtained exclusively by our news team are the stringent penalties that taxable businesses and professionals face if they are found in default, and the power of the Central Revenue Agency to do anything from seize properties to issuing up to $50,000 in fines.
For example, according to Regulation 37, subsection 2 of the draft bill, any registrant that offers any goods for retail sale must make visible the price of the goods before VAT, and where VAT is applied, it must be shown in a VAT sales receipt or invoice issued to the purchaser. This is called the tax exclusive pricing rule. Renee Fisher is the in-house legal counsel for the Ministry of Finance. She explained these legal provisions to accountants at the Accountants Week seminar yesterday.
In the normal course of events, when you walk into your normal grocery store, you would see now, as you walk in, you would see the price, okay? What the legislation says is this, that particular registrant, whether you walk into their store or their market, they must let you see on that pricing what the VAT is, okay? So they would have the cost, then they would have the VAT, and then the total. And that is where this offense would apply if you fail to comply with tax-exclusive pricing rules.
Examples of criminal offenses under the bill include tax evasion, failure to preserve secrecy, failure to file a return for 2 consecutive or non-consecutive periods, failure to issue sales receipts and tax invoices, impeding tax administration, improper claim for refund, failure to pay security, collection of tax by unregistered persons, and failure to comply with notice for the recovery of the tax. According to the current draft of the bill, these offenses can carry penalties of up to $50,000 in fines or up to 2 years in prison or both.
Fine not exceeding $50,000 or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years or both such fine and imprisonment.
Fisher pointed out that the bill would allow for the first time in Bahamian history that VAT and all tax collection will be a preferential claim on taxpayers' assets. That means the Central Revenue Agency would ensure government be paid first. In addition to those controls, the CRA would also be enlisted with additional powers.
The CRA will also be empowered in the person of its commissioner to have such powers to seize goods and vehicles, execute distress on premises for unpaid tax. Likewise, to seek recovery of tax from persons leaving the Bahamas through the Director of Immigration. VAT officers will be given direct powers of entry and seizure in addition to their broad investigatory powers.
But there are also penalties for VAT officers and those persons in the administration of VAT. If they are found guilty of taking a bribe, collusion, concealing information, or abstaining from doing an act which results in the revenue being compromised, they are subject to $100,000 in fines or up to 2 years in prison or both. There is, however, an appeals process attached to these penalties for those persons who feel aggrieved to request a formal change to an official decision regarding tax assessments or decisions made by the Commissioner. Those appeals are limited at this time to decisions to register or not register an applicant, to cancel or not cancel a registrant, decisions regarding claims to input tax deductions, the demanding of a security fee, and an application for refund. For MB12, I'm Paige McCartney.
The welfare system is set for a major overhaul with the assistance of $7.5 million from the Inter-American Development Bank. Guardian Business has learned that receiving assistance under the new program is set to become contingent for some families on taking steps to reduce obesity and raise their children's GPA levels. For instance, to receive food or financial assistance, which were once given without conditions, participants in the new program will be required to meet pre-agreed requirements that are considered likely to benefit them, their children, and the development of the Bahamas in the long run. The current system provides an estimated $15 to $17 million in social assistance funding to an estimated 10,000 plus households. Read more about this story in today's Nassau Guardian. Coming up, students reveal just how much they really know about guns.
How many of you whose parents who own shotguns has ever been afforded the opportunity to use those shotguns? All right, fair.
And a little later, the Deputy Prime Minister steps in to defend the chairman of a public corporation. We'll tell you more when MB12 returns.